Lethal Company took the internet by storm, showing up seemingly out of nowhere. The charm of the game lies within the simplicity it offers, and despite the lack of extensive content like most AAA games do, why do people keep coming back to playing, losing, and playing the game again and again and again? This is not the first time gamers have a game that is really difficult to put down. There's been plenty of others in the past few years alone. It's no secret the average gamer has a million games on their backlog, from Steam sales to free Epic Games promos. What makes people opt in for these games instead of the others? Is it the next goal, the next upgrade, or the refusal to lose to a stupid ghost? Is there something more to it? Gameplay loops. Let's talk about the design principle that keeps players hooked in games despite the simplicity, proving itself to be a great asset for the game.
Great asset to the company. Great asset to the company. Great asset.
What is a gameplay loop? You've probably already experienced this inside games. Boiled down, it's the structure of player expectations, objectives, and consequences that repeat. Or in other words, it's what gets you to do things in the game. Here are a few examples to make it feel a little more concrete. Lethal Company sets the player expectation of scraps needed for the quota being inside the facility, going in there to get it, and getting rewarded accordingly to keep yourself from being fired. Hades has Zagreus wanting to escape the underworld, going through different levels of the underworld, and getting bits of story when you do beat Hades and escape.
How?
Phasmophobia gives you a haunted house with spooky clues, leaves it to you to investigate, and earn commission money from your clients to invest in better gear. Why do they work? Have you ever heard of the marshmallow experiment? There's a marshmallow in front of you, but if you wait to eat it for a while longer, you can get a second marshmallow. But that's usually too long for the average gamer. Why not have your marshmallow now and then eventually get the second marshmallow some other time? After all, marshmallows are just too good to not eat immediately. That's what usually happens with these gameplay loops. In an average gaming session, you're able to get multiple hits of dopamine by completing game objectives, as opposed to investing hundreds of hours into a game before it gets good. There is a great deal of motivation to see it through, since in the hour or two that you are going to be sitting down to play, you are sure to be rewarded accordingly. But wait, I hear you asking, aren't these 1 hour delayed gratifications their own form of gameplay loop? Isn't it unfair to count those 1,000 hour RPGs out? Yes! Loops take different shapes and sizes, but operate fundamentally the same. These can be something minuscule that affects the larger context of the game, like the loop of killing mobs with your Minecraft sword, the sword breaking, and having to craft a new one. The bigger loops make you look forward to coming back to the game after. Here are a few more examples. The small loop in Lethal Company is going inside the facility, finding things, and going out. The bigger loop is finishing quotas, getting bigger quotas, and harder explorations on bigger maps. Phasmophobia's small loop is going inside a house, getting clues, and identifying the correct ghost. The bigger loop is getting more money for better gear, more gameplay knowledge for bigger maps, and longer explorations. The small loops in Hades can be a whole run, or even each room as you go in, clean up the baddies, and get your boon. The bigger loop is dying, using your resources to upgrade a hub, and progressing through the family drama. How these examples relate to why some loops are less engaging than others, especially the longer games, often fall on the main loop of the game. If the main loop or the very core of the game is not enough to keep you playing, no amount of a bigger loop payout would matter. These can range from simply going inside the facility with friends, the very combat mechanics, or even talking to ghosts and getting a reaction. Again, the main fundamental loop has to be substantial enough to keep players entertained in one gaming session. Other bigger and auxiliary loops are to keep them coming back. And while the understanding of these principles and psychological tidbits are integral to create a pleasant gaming experience, much like a lot of game principles, these are vulnerable to exploitation. While a great game is even greater with a higher level of replayability with a well-crafted gameplay loop, a horrible game with a maliciously yet well-crafted one can become predatory. These are mostly prevalent in mobile games. Very often these games jump in the middle of a loop and add a big no sign in front of you to cut the enjoyment short. You either have to play after a time gate or be forced to spend some in-game currency that costs real cash to continue the enjoyable part of the loop. Much like a knife, in the hands of good can create delicious dishes, but in the wrong hands can be destructive. In conclusion, gameplay loops are an integral part of game design, and it can greatly enhance the gaming experience. These give players a reason to come back to playing, while allowing those with little time in their gaming session to still feel fulfilled by finishing smaller loops in the game. Understanding of these can be weaponized for evil, so keep an eye out. Thank you for watching our video on gameplay loops. You are a great asset to this channel's success.
Great asset to the company. Great asset to the company. Great asset.